People pleasing. Uh, oh, I've
I
been
never
called a
have.
people pleaser.
I never have that problem. I don't know what you're
Well,
talking about.
and it wasn't in the nicest tone either. Hi, I'm Rick from Thriving Now, here with Kathy Bartuli, Thriving Now and the Intimacy Dojo. Um, I I really appreciate that we have a community that's coming together. I've been hearing from some people by email about this dynamic and some of the stories, and we we invite you to um, take a moment and allow yourself to feel just a little bit more present. Just I put my hand on my heart. Sometimes I just squeeze my legs,
Gentle breath.
allow a gentle breath, gravity to bring you present.
I also like to look around the room and remind myself that I'm here now. Sometimes like I'll still have echoes of the day where I was dealing with different people or different stresses. You're here right now. You're in this container that we're setting together where it really is safe. You get to be who you are here. And we welcome you just as you are. Tears and laughter are welcome here.
Mm-hmm. And this, you know, I was not raised with a lot of social and emotional learning. That's actually a thing now. Did you know? Like parents get books. Even Dolly Parton sends out these really,
Lovely part.
wonderful books about social and emotional learning. And, we've started Adira with them,
Oh.
like Llama Llama Red Pajama. She loves that. And it's about self regulation and, attachment and things. And it's a really wonderful story. She's only read it 100 or so times with us. But
Oh,
like,
what a gift to have that integrated from young when we're still trying to
yeah,
figure out.
right. In my youth, it was See Spot Run,
Yeah.
which is great if you love dogs. And one of the things that I didn't know was that when I didn't feel safe, and I had a split home, I went to my dad's house every other weekend. And I think looking back and tuning into little Ricky, he was terrified that if things didn't work out at his mom's, he was going to end up being at his dad's. And so my primitive brain, it just feels really alive for me. Um, if mom wasn't pleased, that was a really big threat, a really big threat. And it activated in me, like, instead of fighting or fleeing or freezing, it activated in me a reactivity. If mom's not happy, I'd have to do something to please her.
With a kind of
Now,
hypervigilance on her well-being.
yeah, exactly. Now, my mother did not play to this as far as I can remember or tune to. Like, I don't feel at all manipulated by her or anything else. This was my primitive brain taking a read of the situation. You live with this wonderful mother, or you go and you live with the evil stepmother. Those are my choices. better keep mom stable and happy, and not so much pleased with me, but pleased with how things are going, so that she feels
Not
resourced.
overwhelmed, not melting down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now the technical term they've come up with for how that is in your primitive brain is fawn, right? It's the
First fight, flight,
reaction.
freeze, fawn. Like, and that can
Right.
happen. Your mom was very like friendly and she wasn't manipulating, but abusers or people that there's a lot of people that will use it as a way to get their needs met. They'll manipulate and leave people feeling unsettled and uneasy. And I imagine anyone that comes to one of Rick's and my calls, you're pretty sensitive, you're pretty gentle and open hearted anyway. You naturally wanted to please people. And for someone that's manipulative, that's, when we're little, we didn't know what to watch out for. And probably most of us didn't have someone saying this is okay and this is not okay around emotional regulation. And we're going to talk about boundaries a little bit later. So if you can, just notice your poor little self was like kind of swimming in this world where there are people that are manipulating around this. There are people that are not manipulating but still have a lot of needs. And no one ever talked to you about how far you had to go. When was it okay to say no? That, what was going on. That could feel like a real lot for many of us. And part of this may be forgiving our younger self for doing what we did, which was really the best we knew how at that time.
So our primitive brain reactions tend to include some information for our future self, like this isn't ideal. This is something that we want to shift and change and heal. And sometimes that ends up being a lot of self-criticism down the road. So that's where we're starting, is with this. Have you ever fawned?
Yeah.
Like, is who have you fawned to in your recent past? Like this morning? Um, is it a boss? Is it someone else? And if you really look and you're like, that is not me, you can also look at like, I've gotten some emails where instead of fawning, they went the other way, where they resisted being pleasing. So,
One of the things I'd like to, like, our survival brain is very aware of status. And there's something where we like people to be happy. When I have events, I want people to be comfortable. I care about that. But fawning is very like we're the bottom dog talking. We're trying to please upward. And if we have a lot of that energy in our system, it can hurt our friendship and relationships. Like our peers at work may not see us as powerful as we are. Our friends may not see us as valuable because they see us as always available, always wanting to connect and make sure we're okay. There's a hypervigilance and a trauma reaction that comes from when we're fawning. And a lot of us did learn that from parents that were not as always as regulated or resourced as we would have wished.
right. So, how are you feeling about this in you? Um, how intense does it feel for you this moment? Let's pause, and I find it useful to like, okay, how do I feel about my past people pleasing dynamics? Well, like feels like a 6, 7, just in a general sense. A little sick to my stomach. Like,
I tend to feel really judgy towards my younger self. Like, why
like
didn't
how
she
could you?
stand up for herself? Why didn't she just let them be uncomfortable? Or why did she chase them and try to make them like her? And there was just I think that there was a desperation of like, our survival brain knows when we're really little, if we don't please and take care of our caregivers, we're hyena food. Like it was a reality as we evolved. I still remember when I was 5 and I was very unhappy at home and I said I was going to run away from home and my mom helped me pack. And I actually got my suitcase well down. There's this dirt road and I was just walking down this dirt road with my suitcase and I'm like, oh my God, I don't know where to go. There's no food. There's no shelter. And I had to go back. But there was like, it really struck home to me that like, I didn't know how to function in the world by myself. And if I really pissed them off, or my mother would get very emotional and overwhelmed. Like if I didn't take care of her and prop her up, I was going to be like on that dirt road with no food, no shelter, and just my little suitcase where I packed a lot of stuffed animals and not so many clothes, which wasn't the most useful thing to bring. But, like we're very aware as small children how vulnerable we are. And I think we forget that as we're adults. We tend to paste like our resources now on that younger self. And like, so when I judge my younger self, it's easy. I'm not really letting myself feel the vulnerability. I don't always want to feel how vulnerable I was as a child. So if you're noticing some judgment, if you can realize that the little kid didn't have car keys or a wallet or the knowledge of how to get help and who would be safe to reach out to help for.
Could we do some tapping just for because I'm activated enough that I'd like to
Yeah.
kind of get started with that.
Okay.
Use EFT tapping if you're new to it. We're not teaching it tonight, but you can learn about it at thrivingnow.com/tapping.
Yeah. So Just invite you to take a nice slow breath and let yourself be in your body if that feels okay to you. Your butt on the chair, your feet on the floor. And right here and now, you're safe. If you can kind of split screen, there's the younger self that was fawny and kind of trying to feel safe. And there's the adult side of you right now here that's leading the tapping, but connecting some with that feeling. So you don't have to dive full face into that old feeling. You can kind of split screen it side by side. And that's a really good way to deal with some of these feelings. Karate chop, even though that was really terrifying.
Even though that was really terrifying.
And I put so much energy into watching them to make sure they were okay.
And I put so much energy into watching them to make sure they were okay.
My little brain was trying to figure out how to please them,
My little brain was trying to figure out how to please them,
when often they didn't know how to please themselves.
and often they did not know how to please themselves.
What if I could send forgiveness back through time?
What if I could send forgiveness back through time?
And some compassion, too.
And some compassion, too.
Top of the head, hey, little one.
Hey, little one.
Eyebrow, that was really hard.
That was really hard.
Side of the eye, I know how much energy you put into this.
I know how much energy you put into this.
Under the eye, you were so vigilant.
You were so vigilant.
Under the nose, you thought so hard about how to make things better.
You thought so hard about how to make things better.
Chin, and that was really smart back then.
And that was really smart back then.
Collarbone, you might have made things better for everybody.
You might have made things better for everyone.
Under the arm, and we don't have to be quite that pleasing anymore.
We don't have to be quite that pleasing anymore.
Top of the head, it's okay for other people to be uncomfortable.
What if it's okay for other people to be uncomfortable?
Eyebrow, it might even be okay for me to be uncomfortable.
It might even be okay for me to be uncomfortable.
Side of the eye, but we don't have to be terrified.
We don't have to be terrified.
Under the eye, we can turn down the sensitivity on watching other people.
We can turn down the sensitivity on watching other people.
Under the nose, we can encourage them to use their voice.
We can encourage them to use their voice.
Chin, to ask for what they want.
To ask for what they want.
Collarbone, and we can even spend some of that energy.
And we can even spend some of that energy
Under the arm, taking care of ourselves.
taking care of ourselves.
Top of that would be a new concept for most of us.
That's an expanding concept for most of us, I think.
And I just invite you to take a breath and notice what's coming up.
Mm-hmm.
As someone shared in the chat, it's tied to the fear of feeling that discomfort, anything to avoid that. And I think that a lot of times when we were little, that discomfort we anchored that discomfort was a sign we were in physical danger or emotional danger. Like we really had to jump on it. As adults, we may be feeling similar discomfort, but it's not actually tied to, most of us have a lot more resources in terms of self-care and people around us. We don't just have one or two caregivers that have the gateway to all sources of abundance right now. Most of us have several other places. So maybe the discomfort we're feeling, while it reminds us of that, it doesn't actually signal the same danger it did when we were little.
So tapping on whatever your reaction is to having this as an issue in your energy, in your emotional reactions.
Yeah.
Even though I've been a people pleaser. I deeply and completely accept myself.
Right, deeply and completely accept myself?
Even though I don't deeply and completely accept myself.
Even though I don't deeply and completely accept myself.
I don't want to be a people pleaser.
I don't want to be a people pleaser.
I don't want that to stick around.
I don't want that to stick around.
It's not good for me.
It's not good for me.
It's not great for my relationships.
It's not great for my relationships.
I accept where I am.
I accept where I am.
And I'm in the process of making some changes.
And I'm in the process of making some changes.
Up of the head. I like pleasing people.
I like pleasing people.
Eyebrow. And sometimes it's at my expense.
And sometimes it's at my expense.
Eye to the eye. Sometimes it's been at my expense.
Sometimes it's been at my
Under the
expense.
eye. And I have some judgments about that.
And I have some judgments about that.
Under the nose. I might even have some self-hate about that.
I might even have some self-hate about that.
Chin. That's not very pleasing to me.
That's not very pleasing to me.
Collarbone. This is important for me to find balance.
This is important for me to find balance.
It feels important for me to find my right balance.
It feels important for me to find my right balance.
Up ahead. I don't like pleasing people.
I kind of like pleasing people,
but not at my own expense.
but not at my own expense.
Hmm.
And it's a, for many of us, we don't have the muscle about pleasing ourselves. Like, one of the things I've always started out when I would do a call, I would ask the universe to please help me be of service to my fellows. That's something I got from Al Anon years ago. And the last few years, Rick and I have been adding, please let us be useful to our fellows and ourselves. So, like, we add in that it's not just a sacrifice for ourselves, but also for us as well. And I think I didn't have the muscle. It felt very awkward to say that at first, or even intend that. It's like, do I deserve this? Is this okay? Am I selfish? Like, just the muscle was really weak on self-care. And just because something is uncomfortable, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, if that makes sense. It may mean that we just haven't done it. We're just not used to that. We haven't practiced it.
Yeah. And this is it okay to go on to then into number 2?
Yeah.
So that is where, like, how do we detect the difference between enjoying pleasing people and people pleasing? And to me, is like, do I have a limit? A boundary is a form of limit. A boundary is something that I need in order to enjoy and feel good about the interaction between us. And boundaries can be mutually agreed to, but there also can be a boundary where it's like, no, this is my limit. You may want the limit right up where you're controlling my every thought, deed, and action. But my limit is if it's a yes for me, right?
Right.
And so that's where I've made personally a lot of progress in, like, what is my limit? If I have a limit, then I know that I'm at least aware that I don't have to sacrifice myself. Being aware of limits takes it, like, the primitive brain picks up this person. It feels like we need to please them. Okay. Well, I'm willing to get them something to eat. I'm not willing to take the blame for how they're feeling, for example.
I think one of the if I so when my mom would collapse when I was a child, I felt like it was my responsibility to hold her up. I had to hold her together, or I was stuck alone with not, we wouldn't have dinner, there wouldn't be food, my sister would cry. And it was just horrible. It was like, I felt like I had to support her all. Now, if someone's in distress, I'm like, oh, I can choose to help some. I can choose to add if I want to, but it's their life, their responsibility. I'm not having to be solely responsible for all of their stuff. And I think that I have a couple people that I help, friends they're having a tough time. I'm helping them. And I notice that some of them that have a little more victim mentality, scarcity mentality, I'll help them with one thing and they're trying to throw other things. They're trying to get me sucked in so that all of a sudden this thing I agreed to do that had very clear boundaries is getting bigger. They're trying to make it bigger and bigger. And I've had to say, no, I didn't agree. And they're like, but I don't know how to do it. And I'm like, I love you. I care about you. And it's not my problem. And it was really hard to say that. Like, I felt like a horrible friend. I got off and I had to tap a while. And the truth was, I could have gotten sucked in. I could do the things they were asking, but it would have been a sacrifice for my own life. My own.
Would you tap on that? It would have been a sacrifice for my own life.
Yeah.
And maybe include it was a sacrifice for my own life for those things that are in our path.
So just take a gentle breath, karate chop, Even though I didn't have any boundaries when I was little,
even though I didn't have any boundaries when I was little.
I felt like I had to take on whatever came my way.
I felt like I had to take on whatever came my way.
And I had to sacrifice anything I had to make this okay.
And I had to sacrifice anything I had in order to make it okay.
I don't live in that world anymore.
I do not live in that world anymore.
And other people are also responsible for their lives.
And other people are also responsible for their lives.
Top of that, I don't have to sacrifice myself.
What if I don't have to sacrifice myself?
Eyebrow, sometimes I may choose to stretch a bit.
Yes, sometimes I do choose to stretch a bit.
Side of the eye, I might be tired and a friend may really need to talk.
I may be tired and a friend really needs to talk.
Under the eye, and I may choose to be there with them.
And I may choose to be there with them.
Under the nose, and I emphasize the word choice.
And I emphasize the word choice.
Chin, when I was little, I felt like I must be there.
When I was little, I felt like I must be there.
Collarbone, I didn't see any choice.
I didn't feel like there was any choice.
Under the arm, now I'm an adult.
And now I'm an adult.
Top of the head, and if I'm dealing with other adults,
And if I'm dealing with other adults,
it's a choice.
it's a choice.
And just see if you just sit with that for a minute, if you would. Just breathe that in and notice what's coming up, because it was very uncomfortable for me. I was the kind of person that anyone could call me anytime, and like even someone who'd been really mean to me or out of like really cross boundaries with me, if they asked for help, it was a knee-jerk reaction to be there for them. And even if it meant that I didn't get any sleep that night, or I didn't take care of my own dinner, or I didn't, I just would dive in and because I had the muscles are very strong for diving in and rescuing, but I wasn't taking care of myself too. We want to add you into this equation, just not just have the other person's needs, but also our own needs be on the scale. And our needs can actually be very, very important. We want to put our own mask, like if we're in a plane and the oxygen mask drop, we want to put our own mask on first before we help others. And I think a lot of us have been taught to dive in and help other people at any cost to ourselves. So if you don't feel like there's a choice, go ahead.
Side of the hand, even though that's a pattern.
Even though it's a pattern.
And I see it in others.
I see it in others.
But I see it in the mirror.
I see it in the mirror.
It's okay. It's so human.
It's okay. It's so human.
And I want to have healthy boundaries.
And I want to have healthy boundaries
that support my thriving.
That support my thriving.
But don't I have to rescue?
Don't I have to rescue?
Eyebrow, don't I have to rescue?
Don't I have to rescue?
Side of the eye, don't I have to always rescue?
Don't I always have to rescue?
Under the eye, what if I don't?
What if I don't?
Under the nose, I'm recalibrating my sensors.
And recalibrating my sensors.
Chin, as a child, they got stuck on alert, alert, alert.
When I was a child, they got stuck on alert, alert, alert.
Collarbone, it made me more reactive than is healthy.
It made me more reactive than is healthy.
And that's okay.
And that's okay.
I'm in the process of shifting my balance.
I'm in the process of shifting my balance.
More responsive from choice.
More responsive from choice.
And in tapping, there is a quality of acceptance. And you'll notice, like Kathy will say something that's sort of accepting, and I'm not quite there yet, and I modify it. It's useful to try it on. And if like I deeply and completely accept myself is absolutely not where you are, it's like I'm open to accepting myself a little bit more. When we're honest with where we are, our fingers actually touch on a more truthful energy, a more authentic, okay, this is where I am right now. I'm still kind of pissed off at myself. I'm still kind of pissed off at myself for not taking care of myself. Like, come on, I was smart. I should have known better.
Oh, but that poor little kid didn't.
Yeah. And the honest feeling is, oh, Ricky, come on, you know. And I was scared,
Yeah.
and I couldn't show that I was scared.
No.
I was scared of being scared. It was scary to have people that were not in a good place.
Yeah.
And part of my personality enjoys being pleasing.
Yeah.
Wow.
I
I may
think
have
that
over exercised that muscle
that muscle got a lot of work out.
a few 100,000 times.
Yeah. Well, I think often our parents, if they were very low resourced or overwhelmed, they would be like, they would see what a lot of people that when they're in trauma or they're really activated, they see one solution. Somebody else help them. And the truth is, if they can like a good parent might model, I feel very overwhelmed. I don't want to hide what's going on with you, but I've actually got this. We'll figure it out. Like I'm going to find resources. They don't dump it on the child.
Yeah.
And smart children can also pick up more than their parents may be aware of. So it's not always that the parent was bad, but letting them know, like, hey, I'm going to calm myself down. I'm going to ask other adults for help around this. You don't have to carry this would be a very healthy way to
Mm-hmm.
handle that. Like, because kids are going to pick up. Like, Adira would pick up if Rick's upset. Like, she'll know that there's something off. And if you could say, it's okay, Daddy's having a bad day today, but he's going to get some help. He's going to call Aunt Kathy and talk about it, and it's going to be okay. We've got this. That lets her grow up with a feeling of security and that the world isn't on her shoulders, so to speak. That she doesn't have to sacrifice. Someone said, I refuse to sacrifice myself. There's a really good stance to be. And people will sometimes act like it's you're their own. I don't know who else to call. Well, maybe now's a good time to find other resources. Maybe now is a good time to call the county and ask for therapy. Often counties will have reduced price therapy for different, or their church or whatever it is. Like people will narrow in on a very helpful resource, like someone who's good at helping. They'll often say, "I don't know if you don't help me, I don't know what I'll do." Like, wow, that sounds really scary, and I can't be all of that for you. I can maybe I'm I actually feel like I have 10 minutes to help you brainstorm some options if you want, but I need to go get dinner because I haven't had it's time for my food and I'm going to take care of myself. So I'm just giving you a little bit of an example because I don't think this is modeled very well in this world. It's like, no, you have to be with me on the phone until I'm done. No, I don't have
Yeah.
to.
Would you do a tapping for us? I can't be all of that for you. Like
Yeah.
just helping us activate that. I, I can now. I know that there are people that really do live based upon obligation and mutual obligation to one another, that I'm there for you no matter what, even if it causes me to not be thriving, and vice versa. I expect the same. That kind of obligation dynamic isn't emotional freedom, and that's my thing. Yet we're managing, like I'm managing a very caring person. So this particular statement, I can't be all of that for you. um, I couldn't be a professional doing this work if early on, like in the first 6 months of being a professional, I didn't run into situations where I needed to be able to hold a space of I am part of a circle of support, but I am not the whole circle,
Yeah. The universe
or
has
what
got
I
us
want
too.
to be. And, you know, so like this, uh, the same goes true for even children. Like if I feel like I have to be everything for one of my children, it actually throws me way out of balance. So this is a statement that kind of, if you have a knee jerk reaction, I couldn't say that. I couldn't have that attitude. There are two parts looking at, like, okay, what is the strong, thriving attitude that you want? Maybe we are not landing on it for you, but also like, okay, if I want to be able to live with an acknowledgement, I can't be all that for anyone that just happens to be in my world that I care about, love about, or live under my roof. Um, and it's uncomfortable. There's so much fruitfulness for you to get to the place where, like, no, I'm part of your world. I'm not all of it.
Yeah.
So A lot of
Someone
words.
shared.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's really. I love you shared that. Someone shared in the chat that they told their mother to stop calling them about the problems until the mother did something, like took care of something of this, and then the mom burned the pictures from the wall.
Or turned all the pictures
Turned
through
all
the
the pictures.
wall.
Sorry, my glasses are not good enough. They're on top of my head.
Right.
She turned all the pictures around, and I think there is a sense. My mother often will be angry at my sister who hasn't shown up. My sister's taking care of herself. So there's like, well, I raised her. I sacrificed all this for her as a child. And it's like, no, when we're little, we didn't agree to that. We were just born into this world. So
Yeah.
karate chop, even though they really want me to be all of that for them,
Even though they really want me to be all of that for them,
to fix all their problems.
to fix it all, to be with them through it all.
I can't be all of that for them.
I actually can't be all of that for them.
And I wonder if some of the problems might be there to have them turn to the universe for help.
I I'd miss that.
I wonder if some of their problems
I wonder if some of their problems
might be a call for them to turn to the universe
might be a call for them to tune to the universe
for help.
for help.
Top of the head, I can't solve all of that for them.
I cannot solve all of that for them.
Eyebrow, they're an adult.
They're an adult.
Side of the eye, they have their own responsibilities.
They have their own responsibilities.
Under the eye, and they have other options besides me.
And they have other options besides me.
Under the nose, I can't be all of that for them.
I cannot be all of that for them.
Chin, I can care.
I can care. I do care.
Yeah. Collarbone, I can notice the pain in my heart when they're sad about this.
I can notice the pain in my heart when they're sad about it.
Under the arm, and I still get to take care of my own health.
And I still get to take care of my own health.
Top of the head and all my well-being.
And all my well-being.
I do notice that, like, there's been times Rick isn't, like, he is a baby. We used to talk very late at night all the time. We would talk for hours every night. He gets to go to bed much earlier because of Adira. She gets up very early, and I'm on the West Coast, so there's not as much overlap. We don't talk these long, rambling talks. And I did notice how much I missed that. And I shared it with him. We have made some times to talk. And I'm like, oh, I have to for me to take care of my well-being, I need to find other people that I connect with that feel like Rick. Our conversations are very fulfilling. Like, I feel really good afterwards. Like, there's a philosophical and spiritual connection. So my job is to go out to find other people that they're not going to be Rick, but they're going to fill some of that for me in different ways. And I notice that, like, I like that I'm getting a different perspectives and flavors mixed in. In some ways, like, while I don't think Rick and I will ever stop talking, it's been kind of good for me to stretch myself out of my comfort zones rather than getting so much of my emotional fulfillment from one person. So if you can turn that on someone else who's really desperate and like wanting to pull at you, maybe because they're used to getting help from you, the universe might be calling them to reach out to other places or to try different things to get more of a mixture of nourishment and support. That helps me when I remember. I can just, and like the same with clients, like I can offer them my best advice. I try to be there for them, but I'm not holding them up. I'm helping guide them to an outcome. And they're also like, I can invite the universe to guide me and guide them. I don't have to be the one holding them up in the world. I can be someone that's walking with them through their issues and finding good solutions and trying on different ideas.
And there's a reality here too, as the person said, set a boundary, and some people will object and punish, and even to the point of breaking off the relationship. So that's why we fawned in the first place, right? Like, there's a threat. And so I sometimes need to acknowledge the threat, whether I'm imagining it and my past trauma is magnifying it, which trauma does. It acts as a
Mhm.
magnifier, amplifier on something we might be picking up. Like I might feel that they won't be happy with me for not like coming through for them.
Yeah.
Um, but my trauma will make it like they'll leave me. And this is, I think, part of emotional freedom is to acknowledge when we're amplifying
Right.
a feeling.
Yeah.
And sometimes when we're just really accurate, like, so I'd like to do a tapping that includes,
Yeah, I think that's brilliant. Yes, good idea.
um, even though I'm pretty sure they're going to punish me.
Even though I'm pretty sure they're going to punish me,
They have in the past.
they have in the past.
They expect me to be pleasing to them.
They expect me to be pleasing to them.
And that pulls me into being a people pleaser.
And that pulls me into being a people pleaser.
And I hate it.
And I hate
And I
it.
hate it.
I hate it.
But they are likely to make it hard on me.
But they are likely to make it hard on me.
Even though sometimes I think it's going to go worse than it does.
Even though sometimes I think it's going to go worse than it does.
It's it's uncomfortable.
It's uncomfortable.
It's still uncomfortable for me.
It's still uncomfortable for me.
And I accept that's where I am.
And I accept that's where I am.
And I'm open to becoming a bit more calm and confident.
And I'm open to becoming a bit more confident.
Love ahead. But they'll punish me.
They will punish me.
Eyebrow. They know how to punish me.
They know how to punish for me.
Side of the eye. That look.
That look.
Under the eye. Those words.
Those words.
Under the nose. Their anger.
Their anger.
And their pout.
Their pout.
Called on their silence.
Their silence.
Under the arm. I don't like being punished.
I don't like being punished.
It's really uncomfortable for me.
It's really uncomfortable for me.
Top of the head. And I'm realizing I need limits.
I'm realizing I need limits.
In order to be pleasing for me.
In order to be pleasing for me. So one of the things,
Breath.
yeah,
one of a moment for that.
Okay, what is it? With people I feel safe with, I will tell them that I have been noticing that I'm agreeing with them when I don't mean to. I've been doing things that don't feel in integrity. I will out myself. And I'll say, I'm really working on being more authentic to you. I try to tune it into a positive for both of us. I'm doing my best to be more authentic with in this relationship. I care about you and I want to be more real with you. So I'm going to start noticing, and I may correct myself. If I agree with you and notice I didn't mean to, a minute later I might go, oh, I'm noticing that didn't feel really good in my body. I don't actually agree with everything you just said. So with that, Rick is someone I might be able to say that to. My mother, I don't know that I would say that to her. So I'm not saying it's a universal solution, but with people where there's trust, asking them to help you, asking them to notice, like I will sometimes when I'm in a very fawny, and I'll do this also if I'm excited about something, but I will nod a lot when I'm in a kind of fawny mood. I'll sit there and like, yeah, uh-huh. And I'm not actually tuning into myself. I'm just like hoping they feel really happy. So I've asked some of the people that I do this to. I have one particular friend I do this a lot with. I've said, if you notice this, would you point it out? I've asked them actually to help me with it. And that was really beautiful because now he's much better at like going, did you really mean that? Or were you, kind of in that pleasing space? And that was like, for having that help back, it feels like I have permission and encouragement to be more real. And our relationship has gotten so much better, like so much better. With other people, you may not feel safe doing that. And one of the things that we haven't kind of addressed is what if they pull support back from you? So like, if there's someone that's always expected us to please them, but they've given us a little bit of support through the years, or they've been kind of there for us, if we stop being that people pleaser, are they going to turn our photos to the wall? Are they going to stop supporting us back? That can feel really frightening, especially if there's someone that we've since childhood needed support from, or if they're big in our world, like a boss or someone that has power over how well we do. Someone asked if we could tap on the belief that I won't be able to find new resources, connections, make make
And
it
I've got permission from them to invite them forward.
wonderful. Okay, great.
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hey,
Everyone. Hello, everyone.
Are you gonna lead this way?
yeah. Um, so I'm curious. Your question was about like the belief that I won't be able to find new resources, connections, make new friends. Um,
Yeah, as in
since
like
we're
that. So go on.
well, I'm curious, kind of as a first check-in. Um, is there a resistance to that because that you're concerned that you might have to be a people pleaser? Like sometimes we can believe that, oh, I can't find friends, when actually it's protecting us from having those kinds of friends, the ones that you have to sacrifice yourself in order to even have the friendship, have the connection, and that's so repulsive that it even blocks the possibility of going out. Do you think that that's at all at work here?
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. I had not something that's obvious to me.
Okay.
The way I was thinking about it was, I mean, I can see that now that you've said it. And I guess all I was thinking was in terms of that, doing that sort of Copernican revolution type, in the sense of, so it's been my experience that I haven't made more friends with that deeper spiritual, philosophical, intellectual connection. So, so it's compounding the belief that I can't create those types of new friendships, or
I can't create those types of friendships without what? I mean, there's 8 billion people on the planet, right? Like,
yeah,
by the law of large numbers and the fact that you and I are connected across half that planet right
yeah,
now.
I know.
So
It's silly rationally.
well, yeah. So that's what we do here is we look at, okay, this is silly rationally. So there's probably an emotional root. I heard the difficulty of not connecting with people when we've tried is one thing. But for today's workshop, we're talking about people pleasing and boundaries. So like what's a boundary that you think would be attractive to someone like you? For like, I'm offering this boundary, and how about you? Is that a kind of boundary that you would like that would be mutually pleasing?
Well, do you mean, do I feel like I have the ability to say that to someone that I don't know very well in order to deepen things? Because that sounds
Well,
like it is outside of my
saying it is different
ability.
than, first of all, being aware of it and being grounded in it. So, for example, here's something that's really true for me. I want to say to you, we're getting to know each other, and I just want you to know that if I say yes to you, that's a yes. And if I say no to you, it doesn't mean that I'm just taking care of myself. And really, what I want to offer you, invite you, and really express how important it is. I want you, when you're with me, to say yes only to those things that are yes. I am totally okay with no. Thank you for taking care of yourself.
I just love that. If someone said that to me, I'd be like, bam, we're right there. We're right there. That's awesome. So I'd love to be able to say
and I've said it's a lot smoother than that with friendships. But here's the thing. I'm with you. I want a few more Kathys in my life, right? Like different flavors, different people. I'm really blessed professionally to have you and so many other familiar faces and some new people here with us in the workshop. And I've noticed that if I say something like, hey, how good are you at saying no to someone? And I say it with a little look on my face, the little impishness, you know? And I've had friends look at me like, uh, okay. Well, just to let you know, I love it when people say no. I want a relationship that's based upon us not doing things that aren't a yes for us. So if it's a yes for you and you say yes, I'm going to trust you. I'm going to trust that it's a yes. You can change your mind, of course. Um, and let's practice saying no. Now, I've done this, and I'll tell you, in a 15 minutes of getting to know someone, maybe I've known them at a dance or something like that, and we got together for tea. But because this is so pleasing to me and it lets me be pleasing, I love to please people. So if I ask them, hey, would you like to go out for lunch? One of my friends who I had this conversation with said, nope, not planning to have lunch with you. Oh, okay. You want to say more? Nope. Okay.
Okay. Wow.
And I turned a little red. But you know what? It helped our relationship because
You're right.
it's a pleasing boundary, which is our third point here. So, do you think now that we've kind of framed this as like, oh, this would, as I play around with this could bring me closer? Do you think that you could communicate that in your own words to someone that you were getting to know?
I'd like to. Could we tap on that? Because that's not something, that's not something I'm completely a yes at right now, but I'd love it if someone said that to me. So I'd love to be able to do it. So,
okay. What would be uncomfortable for you to initiate that kind of,
I think it's that thing I think it's that thing that we were just talking about in terms of people. Sometimes people react. Some people would burn the photos, right? And or have some kind of, right? And some people, it seems to me a lot of people seem to need, it's like needs to be an agreement about everything. I was a philosophy student. That's the last thing I want in a friendship is agreement on everything. But it does seem to be, Did I get off track in my answer there?
I think I followed you. I think that there's some resistance. I think
it's because of
to having agreements on everything, and then
it's because my lack of sort of ease in saying something like that to someone might be because of their some kind of unwanted response. Was my answer? Yeah.
Maybe because of what?
Like some kind of unwanted aggressive response in my direction.
Yeah.
Like,
karate chop.
Yeah.
Even though I can imagine.
Even though I can imagine.
And I've had some experience with this.
And I've had some experience with this.
Not everyone's so delighted with healthy boundaries.
Not everyone is delighted with healthy boundaries or robust discussion.
Yeah. And that's really useful information to get early.
And that's, really good information to get and useful information to get early in getting to know someone.
Ahead. But it may not be pleasing to them.
But it may not be pleasing to them, and their reaction might not be pleasing to me. Protection mode, isn't it? Yeah.
And being in protection mode is not going to take me deeper.
And being in protection mode isn't going to take me deeper.
Side of the eye. It would be pleasing to me to hear those words.
It would be pleasing to me to hear those words. I'd have a great reaction.
I'd have a great reaction.
I'd have a great reaction to that.
I don't know. My reaction would feel so good to me.
My reaction to that would feel so good to me. And I can imagine looking into that person's eyes and having a great connection, even just at that moment. That's a nice picture.
And that's actually what I'm looking for.
And that's what I'm looking for.
Call on, that's what I'm open to.
That's what I'm open to.
And I'm not wanting to have to please someone's, what would you call it if they had a negative reaction to that kind of consent introduction?
Um, I'm not looking for adverse reactions. Is that
Yeah.
what you're meaning?
That-
Yep. Not looking
yeah.
for adverse reactions.
I'm
Exactly.
not looking for someone who reacts adversely to consent.
Mm. Yeah, or a deeper understanding of yes and no,
Uh-huh.
authenticity
Yeah.
and authenticity.
Uh-huh. And self-care and we care.
Self-care. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Oh, I'm discovering a filter here that I really like.
Discovering a really great filter here.
That's
Doesn't need to be any.
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there. It just even seems like if they have a negative reaction, it's a little stop sign by the universe going, "This is not your person. Go look elsewhere."
Yeah, yeah. I guess there's the where I am now versus the me who does that. There's a gap between. At the moment, I'm not sure. Yeah, I guess I realized as we were tapping that in some kind of protection mode, and what I want to be in is like an explorative mode or curious mode is more
curious
gentle,
mode.
isn't it?
Like when I started, I didn't have a lot of words. It felt so important to me that the person have a no, and if they didn't have a no, I needed to know. And so I just said, it's really important to me to, do you have a no? Like if I ask you to, mow my yard, you don't want to, are you going to do it anyway? Because, that's what you do.
And now it was resentment in our relationship.
Yeah. So that's where you can start with just simple questions that invite something, the exploration of limits. I will never feel safe, and I will need to protect myself with someone who I don't feel I can say no to. And I will never feel safe and feel like I need to protect myself and limit depth with someone who doesn't have a no. And so I will say that for me at this point, if I'm getting to know someone and I can't have that conversation because I've had that conversation with the people in my life who I'm closest to, every single one of them, I've had a version of that conversation with. If I can't, either I'm not ready for depth, just going to keep it social till I get a better sense for them, or they're actually not safe. And my primitive brain is like, no, we've got enough information.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, that's good because that gives me the
we got enough information.
Yeah. And I get, and maybe I'm doing that partly. And maybe there's also some room to grow. So,
yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're at the break point. Kathy, do you want to lead us into our little
we have
here? Maybe do a little
good things to cover when we come back. And and thanks for stepping forward to tap with us. I think it helps give some substance to this too, besides us sharing. So thank you.
Yeah. So we're going to pause the recording. If you're listening to the replay, hi, it's so good to have you with us in that time space warp here, and we invite you to take a break too, and pause the recording. We'll be back in 7 minutes. Okay. Welcome back.
And there was a comment. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, before we get into the next section, and just someone said that sometimes people will leave our lives or cut us off if we start taking care of ourselves and setting boundaries. And I want to say that can happen. One of the things I like to do is start with baby steps. If you haven't had a lot of practice saying no to people, you don't have to say no to like really big things right away. You can start practicing with smaller things or say, I see what you're saying, but I also think this might be true. Like, we don't have to dive in the deep end especially with people that are very reactive or that might have a really strong reaction. We do want to kind of push our comfort zones a little around it, and we want to start speaking up. But we don't have to start with the person we think is going to write us out of their lives right away if we're not ready for that. So I just want to emphasize that this can be, we don't have to dive in the deep end of the pool. We can start on the shallow end. And there may be people that are really angry about us speaking up and doing this. They may write us out. And we do our being in this world in a healthy way means that we take care of our own needs too. Like it's a yes and we'll talk a little bit more about that in the next section. So
right. And someone said, if I have a history with someone, it's harder to say no than with new people. And history can be, we've got rapport. I love you. We have an emotional bank account that's, growing. And I don't want to do anything to upset and unsettle that. And honestly, there's a wide range of things that Kathy could ask of me that would be a yes, just like, of course.
Or it might be how can we do it tomorrow instead of tonight? I'm really tired tonight.
Right. And so with people that I have, like my nature is to feel the no inside me and then ask, well, what is a yes for me? And the yes can be asserting a boundary. And the yes can be like, well, what would be a yes for me is to talk tomorrow. Does that work for you? What would be a yes for me is to send you 3 names of people that could be supportive for you professionally that you might hire.
And when I asked for a website, I asked Rick to help me on a website, and he's like, that's a big project. I just don't have the bandwidth for it right now. And I was like, okay.
Yes.
I feel a little sad, but it's he absolutely gets, because he's so good at it.
So that's a reflection that as someone who enjoys being pleasing, and I actually, my mind works toward finding alternatives. The tapping has really helped. Instead of being in a primitive brain, I don't want to be a people pleaser and that would be a sacrifice for me. No, like I don't have to do that. I can be like, well, yeah, I could choose to sacrifice here. Or I could offer some alternatives if they're coming to me, or just say, I'm really attuned to myself right now, and that just does not feel like a yes for me as much as I care about you. Mm-hmm. You see, and like Kathy said, sometimes that's not pleasing. That's not what we wanted to hear.
But I'm really glad that Rick will speak up, because then I feel safe asking him. And some people are sharing, like, so for some of my family, it'd be like I was talking a different language, or that I've had long-term relationship. We get in a rhythm with people, and we have that rhythm of them being in our lives and we're acting a certain way. That's really hard, but we can model something even better, where there's a deep trust. I've got other people, I'm like, are you sure you want to do this? Like, I doubt them, because they've never practiced. They've never really stood up for themselves, so I don't trust their word. Versus I feel very safe asking, as long as I'm like, do you have room for me to make a request? Like if he's really busy or something, I don't want to interfere. But otherwise, I feel like I could ask him anything. And I trust his word. I trust that he's not going to give something that's not a yes for him, that resentment won't build up in that relationship. So while it may feel very awkward when we first introduce this new way of being with other people, realize you're at least giving them the opportunity to learn something new. You're modeling something that they may have never seen before. And a relationship where there's not resentment between people is very, very nice. Like I grew up where there was always resentment and hidden and gossip and manipulation and guilt. And I don't want to live that way anymore. So you're by being somewhat different with other people, while they may be uncomfortable or bewildered, you might be offering them a doorway to something that's really beautiful.
So this is really the third key, is that pleasing boundaries. What are pleasing boundaries? Well, they start, of course, with what's pleasing to you. And we touched on that, where it's like, oh, it'd be so pleasing to me to hear that. And just knowing and experimenting and playing around with, well, what would I like to hear? Hey, I want you to feel free of obligation, no matter how much you end up thinking I am just the dearest heart that would love to do as much for as possible. Please, no, you're never obligated to even come to my birthday party or whatever. You start thinking about like, how do you want to free people up and ask for that for yourself? Say it for yourself too. It's like renegotiating. Now, there are some people, as someone noted, I realized I was in a friendship that didn't feel so right, and I was wondering why I didn't leave. Part of staying in the friendship was because it was too hard and scary to say no and leave. Now, Kathy said baby steps. Like that can be part of like the first thing is right distance, right depth, where you start the process of decoupling and create some distance.
Maybe you create other friends so you're not relying on that one person so much. Might
Right.
feel less
And
scary.
yeah, and in the Thriving Now Center, you might want to search for right distance, right depth, because we start talking about like finding that um, to say no and leave is a very binary kind of primitive brain. Okay, it's time to flee, and that may not be for many of us actually where we want to land. We want to land in something that is perhaps less intimate, less deep, less frequency, a little more distant, that the right distance and right depth are in a different place. So, pleasing boundaries, even just considering that, because boundaries often have this sense of wall or, you know, that it's a hard limit. Boundaries can be very dynamic and based upon like where your energy is, what's a yes for you, what matters to you right now most, where are you wanting to put your time and energy, and if it's pleasing to you to engage that way, that's a real clue. And your primitive brain will start picking up on that. Say, oh, the boundary allows me to clarify and focus. It allows you to co-create without resentment. As Kathy said, a relationship where resentment is not minimized, um, and cleaned up, right? Like the kind of thing where, hey, this isn't on you, but I just want to reflect that the other day when you asked me to do this, I just said yes because you're my buddy. And it actually wasn't a yes for me. And I just wanted to let you know that in general, if uh, if you want to get clear guidance from me, when you say something like, "Hey, would it be a yes for you to pick me up at the airport?" rather than, "Hey, I'm coming in at 4 a.m. Why don't you pick me up?" Like that doesn't feel like it's as spacious. But it's on me. I said yes, and when we clean up relationships, we get to co-create and we get to be clearer, and our buddies and kin get to really feel the clarity of our yes in a way that they probably have not experienced before. The same yes that's from obligation, because you're coming from your primitive brain. Oh, I have to be pleasing to this person because they're my one dear friend, or they're my dear friend. I need to do that because that's what I feel, oh, I have to do. But 95% of the stuff I would do anyway. And that's to me where I get to live as a pleasing person without the obligation of being a perfect at it, and the freedom to be clear.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think that it's really one of the things we talked about is to notice when you're saying please, when you're agreeing with someone or saying yes, notice if you feel that you have the choice. One of the things I did with one client that was a yes, everything was yes all the time. I had her talk to a couple of friends that she was close to, she felt comfortable with. And I said, I would like you to agree with them that you're going to answer no to everything they ask you first. You
Yeah.
can change your mind in a minute. Um,
Go ahead.
yeah. Um, Thanks, Rick. So for a couple days, that was the rule, and they would be funny about it. They're like, "Can I give you $1 million?" And she'd have to say no. And like it, when we can laugh about it and play with it, our survival brain starts feeling so scared of it. So by practicing a few days, and then her friends would say, "I'd like you." They'd even say this: "I want you to say no first to what this, like, if they had a bigger request, I'd like you to say no first, and then if you want to change your mind, you can." So that there was it took away that knee jerk. So if it feels like you need to say yes, you're probably not making a choice that's good for you. You're not looking at yourself in the equation on the balance sheet. So I like to offer that because they had so much fun with it and they felt really close, and that they started building a really honest relationship. So
Yeah, we're going to cycle back around to this aspect of the real skill of engaging and deepening in co-creation. You know, self-care. The core of this is that honoring and shifting your primitive brain so that it knows that it's got some choices, and being aware that it's healthy and good to have limits, whether you always can articulate them and speak them aloud or not. If you're aware, like, okay, I'm going past my limit here, it gives you something that you could work with a buddy, with a professional, like, oh, I noticed I have a limit and I went beyond it. Because we know that we do that. And in the retrospect, you can you can actually recraft a different pathway, different languaging, different like pausing, taking a powerful pause. Another one of the workshops that we did, very, very useful for people pleasers reforming into pleasing people. Finding that balance, taking a powerful pause, making that part of your dynamic. So, um, we have a volunteer, um, Nicole.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can. And you, would you be open to working with Kathy for this tapping?
Yeah, sure.
And Kathy, and for everyone, Nicole is described a bunch of this, but I'm wondering, Nicole, if there's a a few sentences about the inner conflict that you have around pleasing and being pleased, and how that sits in your body.
Yes. So I guess I feel uh, when I'm with somebody that I care about quite a lot,
yeah,
I feel this desperate need to please them at the same time as I feel like I cannot please them. Like I kind of refuse to please them. And I feel really stuck and frozen and kind of trapped around my inability to please them.
okay.
Also, that feeling of like, I don't even think they would actually be pleased by what I would do. So then I'm not going to do it. And at the same time, I also feel like, well, I'm not pleased either. Like, I'm not pleased with what's happening. And I don't feel like I can ever be pleased. So I don't feel like they will ever be pleased.
This whole noisy mess. What do you feel in your body? You said you feel frozen. There's a freeze response, but how do you experience that conflict? Is there tension or heat or cold or?
Yeah, so I feel a lot of heat in my throat and tension in my chest and stomach.
Okay.
My feet feel quite cold.
Okay.
And often when I'm feeling like that, I also feel quite nauseous and sick in my stomach.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to invite you to tap along and repeat the words back, and you're welcome to modify them if something lands differently for you, okay?
Yep.
So karate chop, even though I have this inner conflict.
Even though I have this inner conflict.
And boy, is it noisy.
And boy, is it really noisy.
I really want to please this person.
I really want to please this person.
And I'm not sure I can.
And I'm pretty sure I can't.
I'm not sure I can please myself either.
I'm not sure I can please myself either.
And all this noise means I'm not really present with this person at all.
And all of this noise means I'm not present with this person at all.
I'm not even getting to enjoy the friendship I have with them.
I'm not even getting to enjoy the friendship I have with them.
And I'd really like to resolve this.
And I would really like to resolve this.
Top of the head, all this inner conflict.
All of this inner conflict.
Eyebrow, I learned it from somewhere.
I learned it from somewhere.
Side of the eye, maybe when I was a child.
Maybe when I was small.
Under the eye, maybe there was a mom or dad that I wanted to make happy.
Pretty sure I wanted to make my mum and dad happy.
Under the nose, and maybe they didn't receive that very well.
And they definitely didn't receive that very well.
Chin, so I learned that I'm not good at pleasing people.
So I learned that I'm not good at pleasing anyone.
Collarbone, so I send love back to that little child.
So I send love back to my inner child.
Under the arm, I was really doing my best.
I was really doing my best. Really, really doing my best.
Top of the head, and they were just grumpy people.
And they were just pretty rageful.
Eyebrow, no wonder that poor kid couldn't make them happy.
No wonder that poor kid couldn't make them happy.
Side of the eye, I invite that inner child to notice I'm not with my parents anymore.
I invite my inner child to notice that I'm not with my parents anymore.
Under the eye, when I was little, the game was rigged.
When I was little, the game was rigged.
Under the nose, there was no way to win.
There was no way to win.
Chin, no wonder if she feels nauseous and frozen.
No wonder she feels nauseous and frozen.
Collarbone, there was no way to win.
There was no way to win.
Under the arm, and now I'm with people that might be a little different.
And now I'm with people that might be a little bit different.
Top of the head, some of them I might even be willing to say, I feel really frozen right this moment.
Some of them I might even be willing to say, I feel really frozen right now.
Eyebrow, I'm afraid that you can't be pleased by anything I do.
I'm afraid that you can't be pleased by anything that I do.
Side of the eye, I'm afraid there's nothing I can do that's right.
I'm afraid there's nothing I can do that's right.
Under the eye, and the only thing I know to do is be authentic with you.
And the only thing I know how to do is be authentic with you.
Under the nose, hopefully that might be a little pleasing.
Hopefully that might be a little pleasing.
Chin, and it's really true.
And it's really true.
Collarbone, I can notice that I feel frozen and scared.
I can notice that I feel frozen and scared.
Under the arm, what if I just stay with that feeling for a moment?
And what if I just stay with that feeling for a moment?
Top of the head, and realize the people that caused me to feel that way aren't here.
And realize that the people that caused me to feel this way are not here right now.
Just take a breath and see if you can imagine doing that. If you imagine that, what is coming up for you?
If I imagine speaking that authentically.
Yeah, with a person that you felt safe with. I'm not just talking about random humans in your world.
Yeah, I feel like there are people that I know who understand that languaging and
Okay.
would be like, yeah, okay. And maybe they have nothing to say either, and I have nothing to say, and we just kind of sit there, but
Yeah.
it's kind of okay.
Yeah, I think if someone said that to me, I'd be like, wow, that sounds really vulnerable. I really appreciate you sharing that, so I know what's going on for you. It doesn't mean I can necessarily fix it, but I can just acknowledge that, which is probably different than your parents would have reacted.
Yeah.
I think often when we're in that frozen state, especially if there's like pressure or heat in our throat, we want to say something. There's like our system wants to express something, let it be different than it used to be. And you may have some old grief and anger about your parents that you may want to do some tapping on as well.
Yeah.
Because that sounds really tough for a little kid to be around people that just aren't willing to be pleased. They're just like angry and rageful and venting on anyone who's near them.
Yeah.
So how does the nausea and the inner conflict feel right now?
I think there's a little bit less tension in my chest.
Okay.
I still feel like tension in my throat and a little bit something lower in my stomach.
Okay. Let's just do another round if that's okay. Rick, can we take another karate chop? Even though I still have this inner conflict.
Even though I still have this inner conflict.
And I acknowledge the tension in my body.
And I acknowledge the tension and stress in my body.
Great. These are just sensations I'm feeling.
These are just sensations that I'm feeling.
They're just feelings.
They're just feelings.
And I'm actually okay.
And I'm actually okay.
I can give space to these sensations.
I can give space to these sensations.
And acknowledge they come from really tough situations.
And acknowledge that they come from really tough situations.
That aren't happening right now.
That are not happening right this minute.
Top of the head, all this internal conflict.
All of this internal conflict.
Eyebrow, that poor little kid.
That poor little kid.
Side of the eye, sweetheart, thank you for doing as much as you could.
Sweetheart, thank you for doing so much. More than you could.
Yeah, under the eye, no one could do better in that situation.
Nobody could do better in that situation.
Under the nose, and we got out.
And we got out.
Chin, you did it.
You did it.
Collarbone, you got us through that.
You got us through that.
Under the arm, and these are different people.
And these are different people.
Top of the head, maybe we don't have to feel quite so scared.
Maybe we don't have to feel quite so scared.
Just take a breath and maybe put your hand on your heart and send some love to that younger self that was like, that would be so confusing and overwhelming, like wanting to please, wanting to help, and nothing worked. No wonder there's a lot of inner conflict around that.
Yep.
What are you noticing right now?
I'm noticing that it's a bit easier to breathe.
That's a nice thing.
My head feels lighter.
Good.
Yeah.
One thought I had is either in Rick has the group calls or like if you feel safe to do it, an empty chair exercise that's really useful is maybe put one of your parents in a chair and imagine you're talking to them and just tap through the points while you tell them what you're feeling when you think about this. You might have grief, you might have anger, you might have fear. If you just tap and tell them whatever you're noticing in the moment. I feel scared to tell you this. I'm angry that you could never notice my efforts, that nothing was ever good enough. That can sometimes clear a big chunk of it.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
So, and if you need support, make sure you get some support either in a group call or a coaching session.
Yes.
Yeah. Really, thank you so much for sharing this. I really admire your courage.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And thank you all. Thank you all so much because, I think about dynamics that would be pleasing to me and to be able to engage with people and where both people are aware, like, oh, well, it's pleasing for me to do this and be this, and it's pleasing for me to do this and be this, but this is a gap. Like, I actually can't listen to that. And so I want to have a pleasing boundary, to be able to co-create and relate in that way. It isn't where we can interact with everyone. Though we're cultivating this inside of yourself and you're noticing where it's not there in degrees, but as you meet new people and you engage with them, you start including some of this language. It is a new language. It's like, hola, ¿cómo estás? And you're like, what? Yeah, oh, you start tuning into people that really like to be pleasing with healthy boundaries, that appreciate moments where they don't have to always be happy. They can be in a grumpy mood, and you can find a pleasing mutual boundary that serves you even. This is really amazing work, and it sets the stage for co-creating in a way that I love. I have it in my life. I look forward to more. I invite you to explore with us in our circle of how this works. Thrivingnow.com/circle is where you can learn more about that. this is what we get together to do, is to explore these types of things and to cultivate these skills and to share them with the new friends and loved ones that we want to bring into our life.
Yes. Yeah. I just really appreciate you all. Please, if you can, give yourself a moment to recognize your own courage in showing up on a difficult topic that a lot of people just avoid. You showed up. We don't often acknowledge our own courage. And it does take courage to talk, to share, the people that shared, the people that shared in the comment. And if you were just here letting yourself experience this, you rock. Seriously, you are making a difference in the world. And I hope you can let that in.
Thank you all. Thank you, Kathy. Yeah, and guess what? We're doing another Real Skills workshop. We do 2 a month. You're probably going to get an email tomorrow about the next one, which will be on less than a week from now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Sunday. All right. Good night.
Good night, everyone.